So a news article recently released shows an esteemed biologist here in America who thinks that a lot of Americans are scientifically ignorant. And I have to agree with him. About half of all Americans doubt the Big Bang Theory. About the same number of people doubt that climate change is due to human activity. And about a third of Americans don't accept that evolution is the reason for biodiversity of life here on Earth. This is despite the scientific consensus on all these things being completely overwhelming.
12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 8, start, 2, 1, booster ignition, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
So I fucking love science. I just want you to stop for a second and think about your daily life and what science has actually given you. I mean, it's given me my cell phone, my iPad, the camera that I'm recording this with, and the microphone technology. It's given me the internet, which gives you guys the ability to watch this video. Modern medicine, which keeps us alive much longer and much healthier. Electricity, that's pretty fucking cool. Modern agriculture, which is responsible for feeding the billions of people on the planet. Transportation from its earliest forms now into 2015, where we have hybrid and electric cars, and the technology is just getting amazing with these things. And not to mention some bigger things like NASA. Yeah, we landed someone on the fucking moon. So if you don't think science is valuable in your everyday life, well, then you're just wrong. Carl Sagan once said, "We live in a society completely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology." So the first thing I'd like to say to the people who think their scientific input is valid and means anything, the first question you should ask yourself: am I a scientist? Because if the answer is no, you should probably shut the fuck up. Also, you should probably learn what the scientific consensus is before you open your mouth. All ideas about scientifically related questions are not and should not be treated equally. Even in the field of science, a biologist, for example, would never go so far as to tell a physicist that he's wrong about the string theory. Scientific fields are extremely specialized, and most of the people that are studying these things have devoted their entire lives to one field of study. A huge portion of Americans don't even know what the scientific method is. They don't even know what the peer review process is like. They don't know the definition of a scientific theory and how it relates to a hypothesis. They probably couldn't even tell you what the difference between a control and a variable is in an experiment. There's a huge gap between public opinion and what the scientific consensus is regarding some of these issues. 98% of scientists agree that evolution is the reason for biodiversity on life, as opposed to about 65% of the American public. Just a side note about that 98%, that's among all scientists. When you look into the life sciences, such as biology, that number jumps up to about 99.8%. 94% of scientists say that global warming is a very serious threat. Only 65% of the public agrees with that. 87% of scientists say that humans are to blame for global warming, whereas only about 50% of the American public think so. And this is not something new. Right now, ignorance is holding us back from caring sufficiently about global warming. A century ago, the debate was over evolution. Sorry, creationists, that one's already been decided. A few centuries before that, it was ignorance and denial about the Earth being flat and whether the Earth rotated around the sun or not. Here's another embarrassing fact for us Americans. About a quarter of the people polled in 2013 thought that the sun revolved around the Earth. Yeah, that's 25%. That's embarrassing. For some odd reason, scientifically illiterate people think that saying "I don't know" is a sign of weakness. It's not. Scientists work on the edge of what's known and unknown. They're comfortable with saying "I don't know" instead of making something up to fill that void of knowledge. This is known as the argument from ignorance. It's a logical fallacy that I hear way too often. The argument from ignorance claims that the truth of a premise is based on the fact that it has not been proven false. An example I commonly point to when talking about the argument from ignorance is abiogenesis. Now, abiogenesis is about life coming from non-life. There's no definitive answer as of right now for how life came from non-life. However, scientists in the past 10 or 20 years have come a lot closer to finding the answer to this question. In 2014, a group of researchers were able to produce all 4 components of RNA. They were able to do this by simulating an asteroid impact in primordial conditions. So for me, I'm pretty comfortable saying that I don't know how life arose from non-life billions of years ago. Religious people have a hard time doing this. They like to say, oh, I don't know how this happened, so it must have been this particular God that did it outside of space and time, and he's all-knowing and all-powerful, and you can't see him, but trust me, he's the one who did it. And oh, by the way, he's a male. If you don't know how something happened and the scientists don't understand it, you don't get to automatically posit your God or your particular religion is responsible. I could just as easily say that an alien life form from a different dimension put life here on Earth billions of years ago. I could say that we're all inside a matrix and that we're just a computer simulation. However, I don't have any evidence for this, and without evidence, no belief should be warranted. As theoretical physicist Lawrence Krauss once said, the lack of understanding something is not evidence of God. It's evidence of a lack of understanding. Nailed it. I think that people enjoy the things that science gives them, but not the tough questions that it asks. If you're watching this video and you're a skeptic about evolution or climate change or any of the other things that science has pretty much confirmed, then I really do implore you to do a lot more research about these things. And not just from religious websites. Search academic websites and scientific websites and try to learn more. And if you think you have evidence to disprove one of these scientific theories, please come forward with your evidence. You need to become a scientist, become a biologist, learn how science works. Submit your paper for peer review and study. And if it gets accepted and you overturn evolution or climate change or any of these things, you would win a Nobel Peace Prize immediately. I mean, you would be one of the most famous people on the planet. And people, there's skeptical people about this stuff all the time. But they never put forth any papers that get peer-reviewed or published. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's not based on reality. It's based on a deep-seated need to believe. And I understand that it's tough to question things that you've been taught to believe your entire life. But I promise you that science and scientific discovery and scientific literacy is extremely empowering and lets you know when something is full of shit. So in conclusion, it's really good to be skeptical. Skepticism is one of the cornerstones of science and the scientific method. But don't only apply your skepticism to things that go against your preconceived biases. Try to open your mind and see the world for what it really is. Science is pretty incredible, but there's no need to add a supernatural layer or explanation to everything. Every time we've learned more about the universe and the world, it's always been a natural explanation. What makes you think that that's going to change anytime soon? Alright, well I hope you've enjoyed this video. I just wanted to talk a little bit about science. If you've enjoyed, then I hope you rate, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.